Welcome to the Era of You podcast. My name is Kylie Nell. I am a self-healing and self-mastery coach. And I have honestly been reminiscing on starting this podcast for such a long time. And I find it ironic that the first episode that's truly come through for me and the first message that I feel cool to share in the Era of You is literally around just start. Just start. This is... For those of you who may be familiar with my work, for those of you on, this is actually my third podcast. And I stopped podcasting about 2 years ago because I was like, I just need a break. I wanted to find my feet. I wanted to also find my space in the industry, I suppose. And now it's come back. And I've been feeling so cool to start the Era of You actually pretty much for the whole year. And recently went on an incredible plant medicine journey. I did ayahuasca for the first time. And a lot of messages that I got before my journey was like, once you do ayahuasca, things will kind of just fall into place and you'll feel like you have so much more clarity. And that's truly happened for me. So it's about almost a week and a half actually post my ayahuasca journey. And it felt so aligned to start the Era of You podcast because it was if my ayahuasca journey just kind of solidified things in place and just brought so much clarity and confidence and certainty and knowing to my heart. So welcome, beautiful soul, to the Era of You. This podcast, truly the name encapsulates what this space is about. This is a place for you to actually truly be held in your transformation and healing journey, and a space for you to plug into so that you can rise into your highest potential. I deeply love personal development and healing. I believe in holistic healing, that there is a mind, body, soul approach. And I've always, to the heart of hearts, when I started coaching all the way back in 2018, I always had this little part of my soul that just deeply believed that every single human being has the right to reinvent themselves fiercely, fearlessly, and as frequently as you need to. And throughout the years of my coaching, building my coaching practice, throughout the years of my own healing and personal development, it's been a wild ride. I have found those words to be even more impactful and true in terms of we have this unlimitless potential as human beings. But as life happens, as we build up these experiences, things get in the way and we get in our way. And that's truly what today's episode is about, is getting out of your own way so that you can step into the Era of You, so that you can step into manifesting the dreams that you've been holding so close to your heart, so that you can step into achieving the goals you've wanted to have for so long. It is time. So for every episode, I pull an oracle card. I love to channel through oracle and tarot. And this is actually one of my very first decks. So I thought, how divine for the first episode of the Era of You. This is the Work Your Light oracle deck. I love this deck. And the card that came through was the Pleiades, which is a double mission, channeling and uplifting humanity. And it's actually a really, really stunning card if you have a look. And I thought, how beautiful that this is the theme for the very first episode, because I feel like that is truly what the Era of You podcast is here for, is really to uplift you in your personal development journey, to really inspire you to go after big things, and very much so that you can step into your fullest potential. Because like I said, it is time. It is time, it is time, it is time. It is time for us to step into our era. It is time for us to step into our highest potential. It is time for us to step into becoming the person we've always wanted to be. Because how long have you been waiting? I think this is like one of the most important questions I could ask you right now, is like, how long have you been waiting for the sign from the universe to reach a certain point in like your journey? Like, how long have you actually been waiting right now to step into your power? And what has this wait been costing you? What has it been costing you? This year, I turned 31, and I had a really sad yet beautiful realization in one. Sad in the sense of realizing that there were a lot of dreams that I've held for myself, whether it's personal dreams, whether it has been dreams in my career and in my business, whether it's been dreams around the home I want to build. There have been things that I've held in my heart for so long. But as I turned 31 this year, I realized, but I've been holding back on so many of those things. And granted, let me just say this, trying to roll my chair in here. Granted, life had to happen. And granted, I had to go through certain experience to be where I am today, because this is important for you to realize. Up until this point right now, you would not be the person you are if you hadn't gone through the experiences that you did. And so it's really important that we find that part of self-acceptance and also acceptance in the journey. And even though I can reflect back on my life's journey and like my career and all these things and my business and my own like personal development as a human being, I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't go through all those experiences. And I am so grateful for them. But on the other hand, there is also the sadness that I felt in my heart. Funny enough, just before I went to my ayahuasca journey, the sadness surfaced for me. The sadness that I felt in my heart, that I was like, there are so many big dreams that I have that I just haven't gone after yet. And right now, if you just had to take a moment to reflect, you'd probably also recognize and realize that there are dreams that you have, things that you want to start. Perhaps you've even started it, but you haven't given it your full potential. You haven't started scratching at the potential of what you're capable of achieving, and you know that. But there's things that like you deeply desire and you want, but it's like you just haven't pressed the green button to go after it. You just haven't allowed yourself to be like, cool, I'm doing the thing. Like I'm gonna go after my dreams. Why are you still holding back? Why are you not going after the things? Often we have this fear of being a beginner again, of just simply starting. Because being a beginner means that in that moment in time, we need to find the acceptance that new beginnings also hold a lot of uncertainty. We need to hold the acceptance that new beginnings can sometimes leave us feeling like we're back down at the bottom of the ladder where you weren't always there. You're probably like, yeah, I used to be more on the top or in the middle. Now I'm at the damn bottom all over again. And that can be really hard. That can be really hard to just start over. I'm covered in goosebumps right now. So I feel like this is deeply resonating with those of you that are receiving this message, because when we decide to start over, and especially as you get older, never thought I'd hear those words come out of my mouth, but especially as you get older, your confidence and certainty, and it's also a biological mechanism of the brain, interestingly enough, your confidence and certainty in wanting to initiate and start new things begins to decrease. It literally begins to decrease. As you get older, that resiliency to kind of just start something new and believe in yourself and not have your fear response kick in decreases. Because as we get older, on a very primitive level of your brain, as you get older, your brain becomes more set in its ways. Ironically enough, for a structure that is so adaptable, we have neuroplasticity, we can literally rewire and reprogram our brains. There's so much magic that the brain holds, but it still holds on to its primitive job of safety. And the older you get, if we had to look back at a very primitive state of being, the older you get, the more the signal gets sent out that we need to preserve you because your power is becoming less. Your strength is decreasing. Your chances of survival is decreasing. Your time is decreasing. There's like all this kind of fear-based response that happens on a very primal level as we grow older. And so if you think about your ability to go after your dreams and your ability to actually really create a life that you're always expanding and you're always pushing the boundaries and you're really allowing yourself to allow the world to become your oyster, it means that directly you need to start working against this fear response. And whenever we're starting something new, the brain has absolutely no reference of what is going to happen on the other side of this. The brain has no reference of like, okay, well, maybe it has some reference. Like if you're starting, let's say you're starting over in your business, you're starting over in your career and something happened in the past that was really hectic and maybe it was traumatic. Maybe you burnt out. Maybe you had people betray your trust. There may have been things that happened. Perhaps you experienced a lot of financial hardship. And now you're starting again. And suddenly it's not like you're just starting with this complete clean slate and clean canvas and there's no reference to things in the past. Suddenly you're here with all this reference and you're here with all this paperwork. And your brain looks back at all your past experiences and it's like, oh, but remember when this happened? Remember when that happened? Shit, we don't want to go through that again. And suddenly you're not starting again with like a fresh, clean slate energy. You're actually starting again with all the shit that happened in the past. And whether this means that you're starting over your career, whether it means you're starting over again in your health and fitness journey, whether it means you're starting over again in a relationship, the moment we have skin in the game, it becomes a lot harder. And I think it's important for us to actually bring this to the table and admit this, because it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It doesn't mean that it's not meant for you. It doesn't mean that you've suddenly lost your mojo or that you were just a one-hit wonder, if anything but. It actually just means that you have wisdom to look back to, but now you have to fall onto choice. And that choice needs to come down to a moment of conviction where you're like, I'm going to start again. I'm going to begin again, and I'm going to believe in myself even more. I'm going to pursue this dream with even more ambition and grit, and I'm going to go for it. And so what have you been holding back on starting? For me, it was this podcast. One of it was this podcast. And I realized how my heart yearns to just speak again and to connect with people through this medium because I find it to be so impactful. But then I realized that I'm making this more about like my own, maybe fear, I would say, perhaps my own, like, I'll rather keep it safe in my mind. And we often do this. We'll have an idea that is so sacred to us. We'll have an idea that's something that we hold so dear to our hearts. And then you really let it foster in your mind. You allow it to percolate. But then what happens is you're allowing this thing to percolate in your mind and become this perfect conceptualized thing. And you see the end result and you see what you're going to create from it. But the moment you try and translate it from your head into the real world, and you need to start at the bottom of the ladder, but what you're seeing right now is the picture that's at the top of the ladder and you've climbed the mountain. But now suddenly you're standing here at like the start of this mountain. You just look up and there's just this feeling of like how am I gonna do this? How long is this gonna take me? And then you start climbing, but as you're climbing, you don't feel like that you're in game. You don't feel as confident or you don't feel as strong. You're like, shit, I messed up there. I shouldn't have gone that route. And now you need to climb all the way back down and try a different route to get to the top of the mountain or whatever it may be. Like, you get my analogy here. And then we don't allow ourselves that process of becoming. We don't allow ourselves that process of like, yes, you're starting again. Yes, you're starting. Like, just start. Get out of your own way. Just start. But in the process of getting there, be okay to be both the master and the student. Be okay to be both the beginner and the person who's already had skin in the game. Be okay to just go for the thing. And I really want that to be today's episode for you, is like, what have you been delaying? What have you been procrastinating on? Throughout the Era of You episodes, we're going to go into depth around mindset. We're going to go into depth around nervous system regulation, emotional intelligence, self-leadership. We're going to go into depth around spirituality and plant medicines and so many incredible things that I've discovered and really started to experiment with and learn and grow from in my own journey. But before we can plug in to all these tools, before we can even just plug into what we want, we need to give ourselves the permission to start. And I can promise you now, if you just started with more compassion and curiosity, you would go a lot further in this journey than being so fucking hard on yourself all the damn time. You don't have to be so hard on yourself. What is the point of that? And trust me, I know, coming from a girl who used to literally hate herself into achievement. I know there used to be a time when we would wear it as a badge of honor to say like, no one's as hard on me as I'm hard on myself. And like, that's why I get shit done and I like accomplish all these big goals. But behind the scenes, that isn't serving you. Because when you have that type of attitude with yourself, all that you're doing is you're keeping yourself stuck in your ways and you're cutting yourself off from experiencing the things you truly want in life. I kept myself stuck in a job. I kept myself stuck in a niche and in like a path in my coaching business for years because I was afraid of change. For years because I was afraid of starting over. I was afraid of starting over. And the moment I started over, it was the most beautiful. It was one of the most difficult times of my life equally. But I'll never forget that moment when I just decided that I'm going to choose me. And I even said it in that moment in time when I was like, I can either decide to stay where I've always been, or I can just be like, cool, I'm going to take like this leap of faith and jump into the unknown and trustful with the universe and have my own back. I remember just saying the same words that I said back in 2017 when I had a moment of nearly taking my own life and things just didn't go to plan. Thank God, it wasn't meant to. And I just remember having this moment when I was in the midst of my mental health crisis. And I said the same thing almost 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, when I decided to choose me. I was like, I didn't come this far to just come this far. And those words hold such dear weight. And I want you to feel the impact of them. You didn't come this far to just come this far. There are things that you want to do with your life. There is a version of you that you want to step into, and it is time for you to do that. It is time for you to trust yourself. It is time for you to be like, and actually be honest with yourself too. Be like, yeah, I'm pretty overwhelmed doing this, or I feel pretty scared doing this, or there's some doubt creeping in. Stop bullshitting yourself and just be honest with yourself, how you're feeling. And then ask yourself, what support do I need actually right now to get through this? Do I need to work on my mindset? Do I need to talk to someone? Do I need to find resources? That's one of the reasons why I want to create and why I've created the Era of You podcast, so that you have this resource to plug into, so that you literally have this space where you can just plug yourself in and be like, yes, I'm getting the upgrades. I'm working through like my inner world. I'm empowering myself. I'm building myself from the inside out so that you can go dominate in the world, so that you can go absolutely wild and just live your best life, because we're not meant to live in suffering. And I can see the shift happening in the world right now. I can see this duality happening where more of us are waking up to this truth. More of us are realizing that we don't have to live in such suffering. We don't have to keep playing small. We don't have to be silenced. We actually hold such great potential, and we're pursuing that, and through pursuing it, we're actually impacting those around us. And I feel like as a collective, we can really rise from that. So it's time for you to start. What do you want to start? It's July. It's literally July. We're halfway through the year. What is on your heart for you to start right now? And maybe that means allowing things to end. Maybe that means that you need to be okay with going through the period of like, yeah, I'm leaving things behind that once were really important to me, but right now don't resonate anymore. And in this space of becoming and figuring out who I am, I'm going to allow myself equally to step into the other side. I'm going to allow myself equally to figure out who I am and go after my dreams, because this is your life. You have free will. So step into your power. And you can share it with me in the comments below as well. For those of you watching on YouTube or on Spotify, I think you can leave comments there as well. What are you starting? Let this be your moment in time where you declare to be like, this is where I'm going to start. And I'm not holding back anymore, because this is the era of you.